nominating former Federal Reserve Governor Kevin Warsh to become the next chair of the central bank. In a Truth Social post hours ago, the president called Warsh a longtime friend and someone with deep experience in finance, including time working alongside billionaire investor Stanley Druckenmiller. Here's what Trump wrote. I have known Kevin for a long period of time and have no doubt that he will go down as one of the great Fed chairmen, maybe the best. On top of everything else, he is central casting and he will never let you down. This pick comes as the president has been sharply critical of current Fed Chair Jerome Powell, saying interest rates are too high and should come down by 2 to 3 percentage points, arguing the U.S. is paying too much to borrow. The nomination follows months of public speculation, with Warsh, White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett, Fed Governor Christopher Waller, and Wall Street's Rick Rader all being mentioned as potential picks. If confirmed by the Senate, Kevin Warsh could take over from Powell when his term ends in May. Warsh is no stranger to the Fed. He served on the Board of Governors from 2006 to 2011 and was the youngest person ever appointed to that position at just 35. Trump was talking about his Fed pick yesterday. Take a listen.
Just an outstanding person, and a person that won't be too surprising to people. A lot of people think that this is somebody that could have been there a few years ago. It's going to be somebody that is very respected, somebody that's known to everybody in the financial world, and I think it's going to be a very good choice. I hope so.
And in another post this morning, the president praised White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett, who's been one of the names floated as a potential Fed chair pick. Trump called Hassett's work outstanding, saying he's doing such a great job that he wants him to stay right where he is. And joining us now to discuss is E.J. Antony, chief economist at the Heritage Foundation. So good afternoon to you, E.J. Trump says Warsh will go down as one of the great Fed chairmen, maybe the best. Your initial reactions to this pick?
Well, I think once again, the president's right. Warsh is a fabulous pick for this role. I've had the pleasure to actually discuss monetary policy with him on several different occasions and go really in depth into the operations of the Fed, and not just discussing all of the different policy mistakes that the Fed has made. You know, it's one thing to Monday morning quarterback, but it's another thing to have solutions to the problems, which I can tell you Kevin Warsh does. On top of that, if we actually do roll back the clock to things like the global financial crisis, and you listen to what he was saying back then, history has proven him correct. And that's not just a one-off. That has happened time and time again. And I am confident that if Kevin Warsh becomes Fed chairman, which I believe he will get confirmed, we are going to see history prove him right time and time again, not just as a member of the Board of Governors, but as the chairman.
All right, so let's go into details then. You said you spoke with Warsh in detail about monetary policy. So what kind of changes in philosophy, specifically at the Fed, might we see if Warsh is confirmed?
Well, one is the fact that you don't need to have a balance sheet like they do today. In other words, the Fed owns trillions upon trillions of dollars in assets that it doesn't need to. We're operating the balance sheet as if we're still in the middle of COVID, or we're still in the middle of the global financial crisis, or maybe the long-term capital management meltdown back from the 90s. Whatever the case may be, we are operating one part of the Federal Reserve as if it's an emergency, and then we're operating another part of the Fed, namely interest rates, as if we still have the sky-high inflation from the Biden administration, which clearly isn't the case. Inflation has come way down. And so he understands that you need to essentially unwind the policies that were started with Ben Bernanke and were put on steroids.
Okay, it seems like we're having some technical difficulties on our guest side, so we might continue the interview in a few moments, but for now, let's take a reserve chair and his plans for Iran. Listen.
Now sending actually a larger number of ships to Iran, and hopefully we'll make a deal. If we do make a deal, that's good. If we don't make a deal, we'll see what happens.
The president praised Warsh, saying he is the perfect candidate in the whole country. He said Warsh is the most qualified and his nomination shouldn't come as a surprise. Okay, now we're going to welcome back E.J. Antony. He's the chief economist at the Heritage Foundation. So E.J., apologize for the interruption just now. I'll go on to what I had in mind after your response previously. So I wanted you to take a look at this clip of Warsh talking about the Federal Reserve in an interview with Fox Business. Just take a quick listen to this.
I think until there's regime change at the Fed, until there's new people running the Fed, a new operating framework, they're stuck with their old mistakes.
So, you know, Warsh is just one vote if he's confirmed, but Trump, you know, believes other officials will change their minds, whether that's supporting rate cuts or other things. Do you think Warsh himself will be enough to make substantiated or significant changes at the Fed, or would a larger regime change be needed, as Warsh put it?
Well, I think the Fed chairman is a key component to that larger regime change. The Fed chairman has a tremendous amount of sway in terms of the operations of the Fed, who is actually working there. You know, they have 300-something PhD economists at the Fed, all of them making mistakes. I mean, it's absolutely absurd that they're allowed to use the kinds of failed Keynesian models, these Phillips curve models that they do, where they think if there's economic growth, they need to suffocate it to prevent inflation, when we all know it's government spending, borrowing, and printing too much money that has caused inflation. And again, Kevin Warsh really understands these things. Nobody's, I think, got a better grasp of them than he does. And with him at the helm of the Fed, I think you would see the deep structural reforms throughout that institution that are needed to really return it to sound monetary policy. It's not just a matter of setting interest rates. It's not just a matter of one man's vote on the board. This is much deeper and much more systemic.
Okay, let me read you some reactions from U.S. lawmakers here. Senator Tom Tillis says, protecting the independence of the Federal Reserve from political interference or legal intimidation is non-negotiable. And I have one from Senator Elizabeth Warren saying that this nomination is the latest step in Trump's attempt to seize control of the Fed. Can we just get your comments here? Can you address potential concerns of the independence of the central bank and what the lawmakers are saying?
Sure. Well, first off, both Tom Tillis and Elizabeth Warren are just jokes in their own right, if we can be honest about it. And Elizabeth Warren was the one who signed an open letter, by the way, to Jerome Powell, essentially telling him he needed to cut rates and he needed to do it in a big way, not just a small interest rate cut, but a large one. She wanted a 75 basis point cut when Biden was in office. It's only now that Trump is in office that Elizabeth Warren doesn't want interest rates to come down. So please tell me, Pocahontas, who is actually the one being political here? Clearly, it's her. Unfortunately, now, likewise with Tom Tillis, he hates President Trump as well, and he is letting his own political views get in the way of the truth, which is the fact that Jerome Powell was asked for information from Congress. He refused to give it. The matter was referred to the DOJ. The DOJ asked Jerome Powell for that information, and it was once again refused. Jerome Powell, as an attorney, he's not an economist, as an attorney, as a lawyer, he should know better, and he knows that if he ignores requests for information from Congress and from the DOJ, it will ultimately result in a formal request, the subpoena that he received. And that's exactly what happened. So he is the one who is politicizing this issue. If Jerome Powell has nothing to hide, if the Fed did nothing wrong in terms of these massive cost overruns with their renovations, then they should simply be above board about it, provide the information that lawmakers and that the DOJ requested in the first place, and the whole thing goes away.
Okay, EJ, well said. That's our time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
A partial government shutdown is likely to kick in by midnight tonight. The expected second shutdown comes after Senator